Okay, guys, we're back on the diorama now. As you can see, things are starting to shape up. Let me tell you where I'm at so far with building this up. We all saw how I added these speakers to the base on the last episode. Now, what I've done is I've glued down my sandy surface here. This is a sheet of sandy terrain that I picked up at Hobby Lobby. And it's made by who are they? What is the name here? Let's see if we can't give you guys a good look at the name. Here we go. JTT Scenery Products. They make all sorts of different scenery products for railroads and all sorts of types of dioramas and stuff like that. They also make these small rocks and pebbles, which I know I paid $2.49 for a bag of rocks. And when I could have just gone into my backyard and picked up rocks for free. But what the heck? We're going all out on this. Now, I've already gotten the position for my ships or my diorama pieces already set up. Took a little while, but I finally figured out where exactly I want them. The Thunderbird ship here, this is very similar to the diagram that I drew. If you've been following the series, you saw that. And I have the Thunderbird ship here, and I have the pod here. The mole still haven't decided where exactly the mole is going to be, but there's going to be other stuff here too. But first, right now, I want to talk about how I mounted them, or mounted everything to the base. Now, the first thing I did was that I took my Mod Podge and I glued the sandy terrain to the base. Simple enough. No need to go into a crazy explanation about that. The next thing I did was I had to find a way to mount the Thunderbird 2 securely to the base so that it's stable and I don't have to worry about it falling down or getting knocked off the base. If this is displayed at a model show, I don't have to worry about somebody bumping the base and knocking the whole thing apart. So the first thing I did was I marked off where the 4 legs are going to contact the sandy terrain area. Then I simply just drilled 4 small holes, small enough to give a nice snug press fit of the legs into the sandy terrain. Because if you look on the bottom here, the legs have 4 small pegs that were meant to go into the feet of these lifting legs had I used them the way it was intended. They were intended to be used. Now, by making the holes just a little bit of a snug fit to these small pegs, I now have 4 small pegs. I now have mounting points for the ship where it just plugs right into the base with a really nice snug fit. It's a little hard to do it with one hand, but there we one pops in, one pops out, but there we go. With 2 hands, it's really very easy. With one hand, you got to kind of maneuver them around a little bit. But there it is, nice and snug in the base. And look at that. She's not going anywhere. Then I had to drill a small hole to run the power wire down into the base. And now my biggest concern with the power wire is figuring out how to disguise it so that it doesn't stand out so much. Because once I cover this with the white cloud, the last thing I want is that red and black wire to be seen through it. So I might end up painting that section of the wire white so it hides it a little better within the cloud of smoke that I'm planning on putting there. So that is the entire mounting process for the Thunderbird 2. Now the pod was a little more involved because I wanted the pod, well, let me take a couple steps back. I want both ships to be removable from the base, just for transport and ease of repair in case something breaks. I want to be able to pull them out and just separate them from the base. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run the power wire through, and I have these connectors here. So when I have everything installed. All I have to do is run the 2 wires in to power the circuits, plug them in there, and we are all done. This allows me to have just a very small opening here for the wire, because I was going to wire a separate connector here, but then I'd need a much larger opening to pull the connector out, which might still be feasible depending on how big the cloud base I have here for the jet exhaust. So that's still a possibility, but for now we're just going to thread the wiring through here, plug it into our 2 connectors underneath the base, and then we have power to our lights. Now, as far as the pod goes, what I had to do was, once I found the position that I wanted the pod to be in, I drilled a hole through the base to run the power wire through it, the same as I did with the Thunderbird 2, because I also wanted it to be removable. But then I'm saying to myself, how do I keep the pod secure on the base when there's really no way to plug it into the base? So then it hit me. Wait a minute, I have a bunch of small magnets. So what I did was I glued 1 small magnet to the pod, drilled a hole in the base, well, 2 holes because I couldn't decide what position I wanted it in. And now I have a secure way of, all I have to do is contact the magnet, and then voila, I can actually lift the base all the way up and have no risk of any of the ships falling off. And then I can work underneath the base to get all my electrical set up. If I have to change a battery, everything just works beautifully. So I'm very happy with the way that turned out. As far as setting up the ships on the base. Now, there may be a small magnet that I attach to the bottom of the mole because, I'd rather not lose it. So, this is it, guys, the beginning of the base. Now, I'm going to get back to planning more stuff. We're going to be decorating it a bit more, adding some rocks, some foliage, and some of the other Thunderbird vehicles here. So, let's keep working on this. This is turning out really, really cool. Okay, guys, we're back here again on the build, and it's going really, really well. I've started applying the smoke effect to the jets, and I'm really happy with the way that's coming out. I'm going to go over exactly how I do it, and this is probably something that's known to anybody who does this type of stuff, but it's the first time I'm doing it, so I'm really excited, and I want to tell you all about it. Now, one thing that I want to point out that I almost overlooked when I was getting ready to do this last one, so that I could show you guys how I did this, was the wiring harness. This is the harness that's providing power to all of the lights inside the ship. Now, this red and black wire would really have stood out within the cloud of smoke. So the first thing well, not the first thing, because I'm doing it now, and I've already done the other 3. The first thing I almost forgot to do was to paint the wire white. That way it'll help to hide it inside of the smoke from the exhaust of the ship a little bit better. And now that that's done, now we're going to get started with actually applying the smoke on the last jet here. That really does look kind of cool, doesn't it? Let me show you guys what it looks like in the dark. Alright, how cool is that? Okay, let's get back to the video. I'm going to show you exactly how I do all of this. Once this paint is dried, we're going to continue with installing the cloud of smoke on the last jet here. And once that cloud of smoke is done, the Thunderbird 2, for all intents and purposes, will be completed as far as I want to take it. Still haven't decided whether I'm going to put the window in, but that would pretty much be it. So we're going to concentrate from here on out after this on the display base and getting everything set up, all the wiring done. I've already been playing with some foliage that we're going to be spreading around. Some rocks, we're going to dress it up a little bit, do a little bit of painting on the base. So we're going to get into all of that. So once this paint dries, I'll be right back and we'll get started on this. Alright guys, now we're going to cover exactly how I made these little exhaust plumes that are firing out from the jets on the ship. As you can see, I've painted my wire white now, so now we can hide it within the cloud of smoke here. And we have our new cloud of smoke. Let's start from the beginning. I take one of these cotton balls, and basically we just rip it apart. You know, we don't really need all of it, but we're gonna just spread it apart, thin it out a little bit, because we're gonna need to shape it to wrap around the leg here. So then what I like to do is make it almost like a little cone here. You can see that. And just spread the whole thing out. And then when I'll take it, and once I get it thin enough, you want it almost translucent. So you want to be able to see just a little bit through it. And you kind of want to even that out. And then what I do is I wrap it around the leg there. And you want to try and get a natural flow to it. You know, you can just kind of imagine how smoke behaves. Alright, so there we go. So now we have a little bit of a rough mock-up of what we want from our jet. So we're just going to clean it up. We're going to need to slim it down a little bit. And we want to get the light enveloped in the cloud, because that's going to diffuse the light and bring it down through the smoke cloud down to the bottom. And there we go, guys. Then we have our latest smoke cloud there. Let me bring you guys a little closer there so you guys can see how it just sits there. And like I said, we're going to want to just dress it up as much as we can, bring it down, all the smoke down to cover the entire shaft. And now everything, time I do this, I turn the lights off and let's take a look here. Alright, so we want to thin it out just a little bit more, because we want to be able to see more of the light transmitting through the cotton, as if there's fire inside the smoke there. And I think we're getting it right to where we want it. We definitely want the top to be the slimmest portion, because as it comes out, it's going to get wider toward the bottom. Okay, I'm starting to like what I'm seeing here. Just have to spread the bottom out a little bit. And there we go. I kind of like what I'm seeing here. Now we're going to turn off the main lights and let's see what effect we get. Yeah, that's pretty much what I'm looking for, except I can see a little too much of the leg there. Okay, I think that's where we want to be. You see that, guys? All right, now let's turn the light back on. Now that we have that set up, I want to take a look in the back and make sure that we cannot see the wire And if we look really carefully back there, you don't see the red and the black of the wire at all. Let's see. See that? Completely hidden inside the cloud. Now that the wire is painted white, it won't stand out at all in there. Alright, so now comes the next step. Now that we have this figured out and we know more or less how we want it to look, what we're going to do is we're going to remove it because we did all of that. Now we're just going to take it right off because it's just part of the process. But we have our general shape that we want. Now we're going to take our Mod Podge, if we can find our Mod Podge. And I use the Mod Podge because it dries clear, so it won't block the light. Oh, and I did glue the wire to the leg here, as that'll allow us to maneuver everything around and put the cotton in without the wire losing its position and moving all over the places we're trying to put everything down. Alright, so we're going to take our Mod Podge, we're going to liberally apply our Mod Podge to the leg. We want it really, we want to apply it really liberally there, keeping it off the body, just going all into the clear part. That's all we want. Okay, and now that we have it Mod Podged, okay, so now that we have that done, now we're going to take our cloud and our smoke and start applying it right to the leg. You want to wrap it nice and tight around the top. Making sure that we get it all wrapped nice and tight around the top so that we get our smoke plume looking exactly the way we had it before. We want this all the way up there. And then we want to wrap the cloud all the way down here on the bottom. Now, it gets a little tricky as you're trying to get this thing to wrap around everywhere that you want it. And take the shape that you want. So you kind of have to sculpt it into the position and the shape that you want. And tweezers do come in very handy for that, because you can just grab little bits and pieces of it and get it to do exactly what you want. That's looking pretty good right there. Now let's turn off our light again and see what effect we have. Yes, I think that's giving me exactly what I was looking for. Now we'll turn off all the lights and see what we want. We want it to be more or less even among all the jets, so that one is not really shining through super bright or much more bright than the other ones. Then we just continue to sculpt it, just to make it seem like it's under a lot of pressure, so it's going to be firing straight down. We're going to play with these a little bit. Now the cloud on the bottom, that's going to require a little more work, and that's going to get a little bit of paint, because as it cools down, it's going to darken around the base. So what I'm going to do is airbrush a little bit of dark paint on the bottom there. I haven't decided what color yet. Probably that burnt paint that I used on the back of the engines here on this cloud, just in certain areas, just to kind of darken it up and give it a little more of a realistic appearance. And there we go, guys. All four of our jets are firing, launching the ship, getting ready to go pick up more equipment. So that's gonna look very cool. All right, now we got to get her to the paint booth, and we're gonna be doing a little more to fix this, to make this look a little more realistic. Here we go. We have all of the paint work that we did in getting this desert scene ready, and you can see all of the smoke effects painted onto those clouds of smoke from the jet lifting off. I also added quite a few more things, such as all the shading that you saw me do there, so that now it actually tells a story instead of just being a one flat, two-dimensional surface. You can see the trail where it singed the ground as the ship moves off to go and pick up something else. You can see the scorch marks where the ship initially landed, dropped off the pod. All of the shading just to add some texture and some dimensionality so that the entire thing is not just one big flat sandy look. Really happy with the way this is turning out. The shading on the smoke clouds really turned out nicely, I think. My first time trying this, I'm sure I'll get better at it as I go along, but I am really happy with this. As you can see, the flame effect is working beautifully. I've already figured out how to refine this process just a little bit more for future builds. But this whole build is all about learning new things. And that's something that we should never stop doing as scale modelers, because the more you learn, the better you get at building. And that's what the whole thing is all about. At least for me it is. I love learning and trying new things. And in this build so far, I've done so much new and different, for me anyway, and I'm really loving it. Alright guys, I'm going to leave it at that. This is the current update. This is where we are with the build. We're going to be getting more into all of the detail work that's going to go into this display now, finishing up some of the electronics, and adding more of the Thunderbird vehicles to this entire diorama. It's looking really cool. I'm really happy with it. And we're just going to keep going with this build. All right, guys, tell me what you think of all of the coloring that I did to this base. And I guess I'll see you on the next one.